What if the valley lasts longer than the prayer video? Let that question remain before us for a moment. Do not rush to silence it. Do not cover it with quick words of victory. Sometimes believers are prepared for a difficult moment, but we become disoriented when the moment becomes a season. We hear language about sudden breakthroughs and immediate change, and then we return to prolonged grief, unemployment, infertility, ongoing conflict, or prayer that still seems unanswered. The heaviness remains. The delay continues. Anxiety rises. The burden feels greater. Waiting turns into worry, and exhaustion begins to speak. Perhaps this does not describe every part of your story, but if it describes even one part, you do not have to conceal it from God. A long valley is not automatic evidence of weak faith. It does not necessarily mean that you prayed wrongly, believed too little, or somehow caused the shepherd to withdraw. Pain may ask those accusing questions, but accusation is not the same as truth. So let us make a gentle agreement as we walk together. We will not promise a timetable God has not given. We will not pretend that every circumstance changes before the prayer ends. We will bring the disappointment into the light. We will learn the words of lament. We will seek refuge, receive the help of faithful community, take the next wise step, confess what is true, and pray without manufacturing an ending. This is where durable hope begins, not in demanding immediate change, but in locating our confidence in the shepherd's presence. Psalm 23 does not merely show us a God who brings valleys to an end. It reveals the shepherd who accompanies his people within them. The road may feel longer than you expected, but its length is not proof that he has left.
Now we must turn from our clock to the valley verse itself and ask carefully, what does Psalm 23 actually promise? Psalm 23 answers us by placing the darkest valley in the foreground. Even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Notice where courage is anchored. It is not anchored in the speed of the journey. It is not anchored in visible evidence that the landscape is about to change. The psalmist can face the darkness because the shepherd is present. The word "through" matters. It tells us that the valley has a place within the journey. It is not the whole story. But "through" does not give us a deadline. It does not tell us how many steps remain or how soon the far side will appear. We must not turn a word of movement into a timetable God has not spoken. The promise is not that every valley will be brief. The promise at the center of the verse is this: you are with me. And something deeply personal happens in that sentence. Earlier, the psalm speaks about the shepherd as he. He leads, he restores, he guides. But in the valley, the language draws nearer. The psalmist speaks directly to God. You are with me. Darkness does not make the relationship more distant. It brings the traveler into direct address. The valley becomes a place where faith stops merely speaking about God and begins speaking to God. Then come the rod and the staff. These are images of a shepherd close enough to protect, guide, correct, and steady. They do not promise that the ground will immediately become smooth. They tell us we are not left to cross it without care or direction. His presence is not passive. He attends to his people within the difficulty. The same truth continues when the psalm speaks of a table prepared in the presence of enemies. The enemies have not yet vanished, yet provision is already there. Communion is already there. The shepherd can sustain his people while tension remains unresolved. He does not need to remove every threat before he can nourish the soul. So hear the correction gently, not the promise of a shortcut, but the promise of a shepherd. Not abandonment in darkness, but accompaniment through it. Not confidence that tomorrow must look different, but confidence that we do not enter tomorrow alone. And when we begin to trust that He is truly near, we no longer have to perform strength before Him. We can speak from inside the valley. We can tell Him where it hurts. We can even ask the questions we were afraid faith would not allow. That honest speech has a biblical name: lament. Lament is what grief sounds like when it remains turned toward God. It brings confusion, protest, weariness, and desire into His presence. It does not conceal the wound, and it does not walk away with the wound hidden. It says what is true while continuing to speak to the one who hears. That is why the biblical question, "How long?" matters so deeply. It is not a demand that pretends to control God's timing. It is the cry of someone who feels the weight of delay and carries that weight toward Him. "How long?" does not supply an easy answer. Scripture gives us permission to ask it without claiming to know when relief will come. Perhaps you have no polished prayer today. Then let your prayer be plain: "Lord, this hurts. I do not understand. I am tired of waiting, yet I am still speaking to you." Pause there. Do not hurry past those words. Do not force yourself to add a cheerful ending before you have told the truth. The shepherd who is near is not threatened by the full weight of your sorrow. You are not speaking into an empty place. You are addressing the God who remains with you. Have you believed that faith must always sound cheerful? Have you edited your prayers so you would appear stronger? Have you confused silence with surrender? Have you treated disappointment as something God must not be allowed to see? There is no shame in recognizing that. Many of us have learned to present composure when what we need is communion. But God does not ask us to protect Him from our questions. Honest lament is not spiritual failure. It is relationship refusing to disappear beneath pain. Hopeless finality says, "There is no one to address and nothing more to say." Lament says, "This is wrong. This is heavy. I cannot make sense of it, and still, Lord, I bring it to you." Grief and hope can occupy the same prayer. Tears can fall while trust keeps speaking. The voice may tremble, but it remains directed toward God. So if all you can do today is tell Him the truth and remain in the conversation, that is not nothing. That is faith reaching for the shepherd from within unresolved sorrow. And once the truth has been spoken, another question becomes possible. What kind of refuge can hold such honesty without requiring the pain to disappear first? Refuge is the answer to that question. Not refuge as escape on demand, and not refuge as a promise that pain cannot reach us. Refuge is a safe place in distress, a sheltering presence where the heart can breathe, receive protection, and find guidance for the next step. The word refuge does not appear in Psalm 23 itself. It is an application of the Psalm's images. The shepherd stays near with rod and staff. He leads, guards, corrects, and steadies. He prepares a table while enemies are still present. Taken together, these images show us what refuge looks like. Not removal from every danger, but the care of God within it. What then does "You are with me" provide when circumstances remain unchanged? It gives honest prayer somewhere to go. It gives the shaken inner life a place to be steadied. It gives the next decision a source of wisdom. And it means that suffering, however lonely it feels, does not have to be faced in isolation. Notice again the table. The psalmist is not eating after every threat has disappeared. The table stands in the presence of enemies. Tension remains, yet communion is cultivated there. Provision is received there. Peace with God becomes possible there. This is not peace because nothing is wrong. It is peace because the shepherd is near while much remains unresolved. But we must be clear. Taking refuge in God does not mean refusing to act. Dependence is not passivity. The shepherd's guidance assumes movement. His staff does not merely comfort the traveler, it directs the traveler. Refuge is the place from which wise action begins, the place where panic no longer has to choose for us. Nor does faith require us to deny that the valley is painful or dangerous. Calling darkness light is not courage.
Pretending we are unaffected is not trust. Faith sees the threat, feels the strain, and still turns toward the shepherd for protection, wisdom, and strength to continue. So let us examine our reflexes gently. Where do I run first? Do I move first toward panic, control, or isolation? Do I turn toward the shepherd before fear takes command? Do I allow God to guide the help I seek, the boundaries I establish, and the step I take? Refuge may not give us a date when the valley will end. It gives us peace for this moment, guidance for this decision, and endurance for this stretch of the road. God's safe presence does not make movement unnecessary. It makes faithful movement possible. And that brings us to the next ordinary day. What does hope actually do before the door opens? Hope does not need emotional certainty about tomorrow in order to participate faithfully in today. It does not predict the outcome. It receives the grace available now and asks, "Shepherd, how will you guide me through this day?" Long seasons require more than one moment of inspiration. They require a rhythm we can return to when strength rises and when it falls. Tell God the truth. Receive the shepherd's words. Identify one faithful step. Contact one safe person. Then return to prayer. Tell God the truth about what hurts, what frightens you, and what you need. Receive again the words that locate your confidence. You are with me. Ask what obedience looks like within your actual capacity, not within an imagined version of yourself who never becomes tired. Reach towards someone trustworthy. And after taking the step, return to God with the result, the uncertainty, and whatever the day has revealed. This rhythm will not look identical in every life. In grief, today's step may be accepting a meal or telling someone the memory that keeps returning. During unemployment, it may be completing one application and asking one person for an introduction. In the strain of infertility, it may mean establishing a necessary boundary and allowing a trusted friend to know why. Amid conflict, it may mean seeking wise counsel before pursuing an appropriately safe conversation. These actions may appear small, but small does not mean meaningless. A faithful step can be quiet, repeated, and unseen by almost everyone. Courage is sometimes simply doing again what wisdom requires, without demanding that one act resolve the entire season. And this is where community becomes part of accompaniment. The shepherd's care often becomes tangible through another person who listens without correcting your grief, prays when your own words are scarce, brings practical help, or helps you discern what should happen next. Community cannot replace God, but neither should private spirituality be used to refuse the care God may provide through others. Running to God first does not mean rejecting pastoral care, counseling, medical care, financial guidance, safety planning, or other appropriate help. Seeking the shepherd's direction can lead us towards such help. Prayer and wise support are not rivals. Dependence on God does not require handling everything alone. So ask yourself gently, who knows the truth about this season? Have I mistaken isolation for strength? What is one obedient action within my real capacity today? Whom can I contact before the weight becomes heavier in silence? You do not have to conquer the whole valley before nightfall. Receive today's care. Take today's step. Let trustworthy people walk beside you. Return to prayer. Then repeat the rhythm tomorrow if necessary. This is durable hope, not forced optimism, but faithful participation with God and His people while the story remains unfinished. Yet this practice must be protected, because urgency, formulas, and invented deadlines can easily disguise themselves as faith. That disguise is attractive, because waiting makes certainty feel like relief. We want a prayer we can repeat, a declaration we can make, or an action we can perform that will guarantee change within a schedule we can control. The desire is understandable. But when spiritual language becomes a contract God never offered, it does not strengthen the weary. It places another burden on them. We must reject promises of guaranteed same-day change. We must reject claims that an accidental click carries spiritual meaning, that engagement activates a blessing, that a formula compels an outcome, or that a particular material result is certain. These claims may sound bold, but boldness is not the same as truth. And when the predicted result does not arrive, the listener may be left wondering, did I pray incorrectly? Did I fail to believe? Is this delay my fault? No. Hope is not a deadline. Hope entrusts the unfinished story to God. A deadline announces a timing or outcome God has not promised. Biblical confidence rests in who the shepherd is, not in our ability to predict what he must do next. This also changes how we speak about fear. The correction is not, a faithful person never feels afraid. Fear may be felt deeply. It may rise again tomorrow.
But fear does not have to become your shepherd. It does not get to deliver the final verdict on your life, and it does not get to choose your next faithful step. Durable hope has three anchors. God is present. Faithful obedience remains meaningful. And this unresolved moment is not enough evidence to declare the whole story hopeless. So examine the pressure beneath your expectations. Am I trusting God or demanding a timetable? Have I interpreted delay as rejection? Am I chasing certainty because companionship feels too small? Have I mistaken sensational promises for the peace and rest my soul actually needs? The shepherd's presence may feel quieter than a guaranteed breakthrough, but quiet does not mean powerless. His nearness can steady us without giving us secret knowledge of tomorrow. His faithfulness can sustain us without requiring us to name the earthly outcome in advance. You are not required to manufacture certainty. You are not condemned because relief has not yet come. You may refuse both false assurance and despair, and having released those claims, we can now speak words that are honest enough for the unfinished story and strong enough to carry into another day. These words do not predict how the story will end. They place us faithfully within the story as it is. So let us make this confession together. You may speak it aloud, you may whisper it, and if speech feels difficult, you may simply receive these words silently before God. Participation is not measured by volume. A weary heart can still turn toward the shepherd. I will not call delay abandonment. I will tell God the truth. The Lord is my refuge in this valley. The shepherd is with me. I am permitted to lament. I do not have to hide my sorrow or pretend that waiting does not hurt. I am still held in the unfinished story. I will receive wise help. I will not isolate myself. I will allow trustworthy people to walk with me. I will take the next faithful step I can see. I will not despise that step because it is small. I will not demand from today the strength required for every day ahead. And now, with tenderness toward your own tired heart, take this stand. I resist fear's claim to define God's absence. I reject despair's final verdict. Fear may speak, but it will not lead me. Delay may test me, but it will not prove that I have been forsaken. I will return to truth when my thoughts become overwhelmed. I will return to refuge when my heart feels exposed. I will return to community when silence begins to close around me. I will return to obedience when I cannot see beyond the present step. This is not a guarantee of immediate relief. It is a confession of honest dependence. We are not claiming an outcome God has not promised. We are choosing presence over panic, truth over accusation, connection over isolation, and faithfulness over surrender. So let the final words become simple again. I do not have to carry tomorrow today. The shepherd is near.
my next faithful act still matters. Lord, guide me in this day. And with that confession before us, let us now remain in His presence and pray. Shepherd of our souls, thank you for being near before anything changes. Thank you for guidance when we cannot see far ahead, for mercy when our strength is thin, and for the refuge of your presence. Before we ask for another answer, we acknowledge this gift. We are not walking without you. Lord, receive the lament of those who are grieving, those seeking work, those carrying the sorrow of infertility, those living through conflict, anxiety, heavy burdens, or prayers that remain unanswered. These pains do not belong to every listener in the same way, but you know each life completely. Hear what has been spoken, what has only been whispered, and what exhaustion has left without words. Forgive us for hiding pain because we thought faith required a performance.
Forgive us for demanding a timetable, chasing formulas, withdrawing from others, or measuring your love by the speed of relief. Have mercy on us. Teach us to trust your character without pretending to know your schedule. Bring peace into the troubled inner life. Give wisdom for decisions that cannot be avoided, strength for necessary tasks, and rest for exhausted bodies and minds. Provide for real needs. Make the next responsibility clear. Give discernment to recognize appropriate help and humility to receive it. Surround your people with trustworthy listeners, practical helpers, wise counselors, and compassionate churches. Give someone courage to tell the truth about what they need, and give another person grace to listen without judgment. Protect the vulnerable, guide every boundary, every conversation, and every request for support. We resist fear when it tries to rule. We reject shame when it accuses. We refuse despair when it declares the story finished. And we renounce the lie that an unfinished answer means an absent shepherd. Pain may remain present, but it will not become our master. Waiting may continue, but it will not separate us from your care. Bless the person waking to another difficult day. Bless the one lying awake while the night feels long. Give enough light for the next decision, enough courage for the next conversation, and enough grace for the next faithful step. We do not ask to see the entire road. We ask you to lead us in the portion before us. We entrust the unseen road, the timing, and the outcome to you. You are with us. Let this amen become tomorrow's practice, returning to prayer, repeating this confession, telling one trusted person what we need, and taking one faithful step. And where community is safe, give us courage to share our prayer request so others may stand with us. Amen.